using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. World peace through individual strength. Yes, indeedy. Waking up the globe in the mornings physically and mentally, and then physically again, to feel better objectively. Your morning would feel so good. I'm Pagawan. Good morning. Good morning. I hope you were able to feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches, like at all of the times. Your only no-nonsense podcast brought to you through the Best Feeling Network. It is Wednesday, July 14, 2021. Good morning. I'm your host, Herbie. Good morning. And this is Pagawan. Good morning. You're able to feel the front of your shins this morning, and then to feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times. And then remember that you do not sit on your legs. How are you this morning? Wherever you are you allowing these words to enter one ear and then out the other? Let me get that host. Let me ask you again. Are you asking yourself one more time? Hold up. Would you? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Would you like to ask yourself with me this morning? Thank you for the host, I feel like. Would you like to ask yourself this morning? Are you allowing yourself to allow? Are you remembering to ask yourself if you're allowing yourself? Am I allowing these words to enter one ear and then out the other? One more time, I want to ask you. Are you asking yourself if you're allowing these words to enter one ear and then out the other? It is Warfare Wednesday. We are extra sparkly today. You're looking at the screen. We're extra sparkly today. You guys know how it is. All sorts of craziness in the tech sphere. But it doesn't matter. We're here today. We're here and now. You can hear me fine. I can hear you. Somehow. Right? Isn't that the case? It is Warfare Wednesday. How are you feeling this morning? Are you able to stretch your body and feel great? Topic today, have you noticed the war on family? You can't be the only one. You ain't going crazy. We'll be right back. Are you noticing the war on family? Are you noticing the war on family? In Warfare Wednesday, in this morning, as you're feeling great on Pago On. Remember to feel the weight of the body on the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches all the time. We'll be right back. My body map has been feeling better these days. I've been able to get that sweet nice cough, get the phlegm out when you need to. It is 5:39 a.m. in the morning on Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. How are you? How are you doing? Have you been mapping? Have you been napping? Are you yourself making a bagel or a donut? Maybe you're eating donuts in the morning. Donuts in the morning are nice. Maybe you're eating a donut. Are you drinking some leftover soup? Or maybe some milk? Maybe some cereal this morning, wherever you are. What you up to? You gotten a good stretch this morning. Feeling that you do not sit on your legs. Remember, you do not sit on your legs. Remember that you do not sit on your legs. No. No. And how does it feel? How does your sense of self feel? As you are remembering to allow these words to go in one ear and then out the other. As here on Pagawan, we are here about feeling great in that godlike body of yours. And then we know that we have a connection with that body, and sometimes that connection feels stronger and sometimes it feels weaker. As in, sometimes it feels great, immediately great, to allow these words to enter one ear and then out the other. And then other days it might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. But you are here to feel great in that amazing body of yours. We're waking up the day. Physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. Shaking it out. Stretching our self-awareness like a muscle on this globe on Earth. As you are one part of this gigantic population that seems to be going crazy right now. You are one individual amongst this giant population, but also we are this giant population made up of these small individuals, right? We are no different than one another, but at the same time so individual from one another, right? Here on your only no-nonsense podcast. Do the Best Feeling Network. What's the Best Feeling Network? But what about a network that looks at you first? What looks at the human being first and considers the human being first and uses that as the orientation? Because are we not the translators of the world? Are we not the interpreters of the entire world itself? Are we not the interpreters of all this art, of all this history, of all this knowledge, of all this science? So should we not be the focus in terms of looking at what we look at, what we should concern ourselves? Because as human beings, we are finite beings. And we can only focus on so many things at a time. Are we not? Can we not? We live in a world right now where we want to ignore the idea that there's anything that unites us. There's any commonality. But there is a commonality. Bam! Bones, these muscles, this structure, these curves, the fact that your weight is delivered down the front of the spine, the larger girthy part of your spine, and not the back, more spiny or bony portion of the spine, which is meant to house the nerves, and meant to stay more fluid, not meant to hold the weight. So we do all have this common design. What's so cool about the common design? Well, how does it enable us to laugh? How does it enable us to cry? How does it enable us to have this sexual feeling? How does it enable us to have these warm feelings? How does it enable us to embrace each other and feel something great when we embrace each other? Why does kissing make us feel good? Why does hugging make us feel good? How come running makes us feel good? All these commonalities. How can you even laugh? What is the design that allows your body to go allow the air to go out and then come back in? It's this common design, baby. It's common design. So what's this Best Feeling Network? The first network to consider the humans as the center point. Human-centric, to introduce the idea of the self again. As in, why do you look at certain media? Because there's certain media that pertains to you. Well, why? Because there's certain things about the self that pertain to you in particular. Right now, we live in a world where everybody's just throwing their ego out there, just like, yeah, but I want to do this. I want to make this smart. And then people gotta love it. Well, here on the Best Feeling Network, we make sure that we look at what concerns you, what concerns a human being, and move outwards. Because everything in life is the human experience first. everything you do, everything you go, everywhere you go, every person you love, every food you taste, every drink you drink. It's all centered with you at the center of this experience, right? This human being. Well, aren't we all human beings? Isn't there commonality between that? Are you feeling the front of your shins? So here on Warfare Wednesday, what are we doing here on Warfare Wednesday on Pago One, your no-nonsense podcast with the best feeling network? No nonsense. As in, we're using all of our senses here all the time to feel good. As in, your human body, your human experience is what grounds all of your other experiences. So should you look at the world? Should you look at the world? You nerds! You look at the world. Completely looking at the world as if it's independent of human beings. You don't see a world at all. The world we know, what we pay attention to. The fact that the thing is called a tree. The fact that a tree is called a tree and not a blah. And not a nah. And not a chair. There are reasons for that. What is the reason? Well, human beings. They decide, right? They decide. Why is Mars called Mars? And not Pluto? Human beings. Why do human beings prefer colder drinks over room temperature drinks a lot of the times? It's a human being thing. Everything in life has this you at the center, this human being. And we cannot be looking at the world subtracting of that. Now, what does that mean on Warfare Wednesday? And here at Pago One, as we are establishing and looking at relationships between the self and different parts of the world. As the world seems to have forgotten the self, but that's what we're here for on the Best Feeling Network. To remind you of the self, which is half of the world. Because the world doesn't just exist, but the world is defined by the observer. And we are the observer. How long have we gone in history? 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 years, 700 years without really introducing ourselves to the idea of the self completely. Now you might say, well, Herbie, we talk about the self all the time. Mirrors. Vampires don't have a sense of self. Right? They look in the mirror and they don't see the self. So we have a sense of self in the media, right, Herbie? Oh, what do you mean, Herbie? What are you talking about? There is a sense of self. What about monologues? What about art? What about art that is created by people themselves? Well, how long has it been since we've really been truly able to identify any kind of inward power within humans? Anything like being able to invigorate yourself and have a feeling better than sex. When's the last time we've had a feeling better than sex in the world? Commonly used, commonly talked about. That's that sense of self. Throughout history, you'll see some kind of introduction through it. You'll see occasional references to it with different religions popping up. Every now and again, you'll get a big religion that has a lot of big following. You gotta talk about what? Christianity, Hinduism, etc., etc. And it might be like, what are those about? Maybe a sense of self. Maybe a connection with this inner power, right? This inner power. What is that? Don't we all have a sense of self? Can we all look at the mirror and have a sense of self? Well, doesn't your inside sometimes feel different? Doesn't your left arm sometimes feel different than your right arm sometimes? What is that? How do you know your right shoulder from your bottom left hip if your eyes are closed? You can't taste it. You can't use that sense. You can't use your eyes. You can use your eyes, but it doesn't really relate to your sense of self. It still feels like you're looking outside in, right? From the inside out, how do you know that your right shoulder is different from your left hip? Or that your left shoulder is different from your bottom right foot? How do you know from the inside out? How do you know from the inside out that's true? Well, the sense of self. The sense of self, this thing internally, right? Well, aren't there some days where your sense of self feels more crippled than others? And then aren't there days where your sense of self feels more amazing than others? Don't we all have those days? Our sense of self is constantly shifting, is it not? So what if you could harness that and feel your best all the time? What if you could harness that and you could feel as good as your morning would feel? As your morning could ever feel. Or your life could ever feel, like if you were ever like pleasuring yourself in any way. In whatever way you want. What if you could feel like that all the time, but you didn't need an external source? You didn't need something touching you, you didn't need to eat something, you didn't need to drink something, you didn't need to buy anything, you're just in with you all the time. You could invigorate your body like that. What if you had that? Isn't there something latent within us that feels that we already know that we can have that? Isn't that why it feels so annoying when people get you out of that flow? Because you know there is a flow. You ever been working on something and then find out that someone has to interrupt you? Then when they interrupt you, you get all upset. Why? Because there's this flow. We understand that there's this sense of self. There's this flow that we can get into that once we break out of, it's kind of difficult to get back into, but we know it exists. This version of our sense of self, which feels very integrated, which feels very natural, feels very at one with what's going on. It feels very submissive to what's going on, at mercy, almost like water, right? It's going with the wave. Very little effort, able to go wherever it wants to. Very little effort, and always in the moment. We already know that state kind of exists, right? A sense of self. What if you could harness that infinitely and get it all on your own? And it doesn't leave you, and it stays with you, and it gets stronger and the feeling gets stronger as you cultivate it. And you don't need no outside source, and it's always happening from within. And you can use this feeling and feel free to use this feeling, especially around people who you love, multiple people who you love, and it's not embarrassing. Wouldn't that be more better than sex? To have it with you all the time. You can invigorate your sense of self, feel like that best version of yourself at all times. Well, that's what we're here to do on the Best Healing Network. On your only no nonsense podcast, as in using all of that senses, all 6 senses, baby. Feel the front of the shins, and then remember that you do not sit on your lip. Warfare Wednesday. Have you noticed the war on family? Emily. War on family? What are you talking about? There's no missiles. There's no missile. What do you mean war on family? We noticed the war on family. Here on Warfare Wednesday, we talk about the relationship between you and the world. Relationship between the sense of self and the world. And on Warfare Wednesdays, we notice especially that the world is at war with you. Always has been. Always will be. In what ways is it at war with you these days? In a very clever way, actually. Very clever and cunning way. It is at war with you with your emotions. It is at war with you to rile you up in your emotions. Why is it important to rile you up in your emotions? Well, when you are riled up in your emotions, you are not concerned about what is actually right. You are concerned about not what is true. But you are rather focused on preventing death when emotion is involved. But what we know about fearing death is that it does not create more life. It might preserve more life. But fearing death more than we love life is a surefire certain way to ensure that we cripple our population. Indeed. Fearing death or loving life. We both do that, right? There are times where we will love life. Oh, life is so amazing. But that makes me fear death, right? Because you don't want death to go away. Or you don't want death to make life go away. The more you love life, in almost a way, almost paradoxically, the more you love life, the more you end up fearing death. Or is that completely reasonable? The more that we end up loving life, sometimes the more that we end up fearing death. And vice versa, sometimes the more that we fear death, we find ways to love life. Now, does this relationship remind you of anything? A certain black and white symbol that looks like it might imply motion, with a dot in one color and the other. Does that remind you of this kind of relationship? Life loving can sometimes make you more death fearing. Life loving can sometimes make you more death fearing. So is it such a problem when we say that there's a lot of death fearing going on? Both of these seem like they're the same part of the same coin, or opposite ends of the same coin. However, they produce completely different results that should be looked at. Life-loving and death-fearing sound very similar in the sense that you might be in the same state when you're experiencing that. You might love life while simultaneously fearing death. But should these dispositions be used at different times, or one to dominate the other? What we do know is that one begets more life and the other begets more death. As in, yes, we all have the capability and the capacity to love life and also fear death. However, should we prioritize fearing death, what you get is sustained life. And sustained life only diminishes over time. It's true that we all have reasons to love life. We all have reasons to fear death. However, should our brains be focused on fearing death, our brains focus on the disposition of the human body that degrades itself. As in, it creates more death-fearing when you stay in death-fearing mentalities. Whereas when you go into life-loving, there's the precise opposite, which creates more love, creates more life. It inspires more people. If we focus more on what people are loving, what the design of these human beings, since we are so similar, right? We do have this inner design that is so similar. How we are able to laugh, how we are able to cry, how we are able to empathize with one another. It is made possible by this design that was not created by us, but literally we're tossed into. Our souls are just tossed into these things. We look at that design, there's something similar about all of it. And what allows us to do that, we look at that. What allows the human body to push forward, what allows it to continue to laugh, to get a good breath. It's better than the last. Why? Because when you get a better breath than the last, and when you're life-loving, you're focused on getting a better breath than the last, not wishing that this breath could have been different, but hoping that they're focusing on making sure the next breath is better than the last. You create a better feeling every time when that breath happens, which encourages you to get more and more better feelings over time, as opposed to being death-fearing, which you're just trying to maintain and trying to make sure that this breath is somehow not worse than the last. Almost looking backwards at it. Able to sustain life, but as every breath gets less and less satisfying, we become less and less inclined to want to get that next better breath. We don't have faith that the next breath will feel better. when we focus on simply making sure that we get the breath that we want to feel better, as opposed to entrusting that the better breath comes from this human design, from finding what can make this human design create that feeling within that the next breath will be better, but become death-fearing by looking at the breath itself and comparing it to another breath and hoping that it could be anything else. But rather be life-loving and encourage what does create the better breath, and look at that, as opposed to wishing the breath could be anything else. The breath happened. The breath is happening. What can you do about it? Every breath is a life cycle, right? You die every 5 minutes, but that counter is reset with every breath you take. So here on Warfare Wednesday, do we notice that there is a war on family, which is a war on you, a war on the sense of self. Why? Because isn't family everything? Herbie, what do you mean family is everything? You can get everything you want through family? What do you mean by that? Family is the best thing ever? Like every family? What do you mean my family's not like that? What do you mean my family's not like that way? My family's not everything. These family memes make sense because my family doesn't do anything. What do you mean family is everything, Herbie? I mean necessarily family is everything. Not in the sense that they are your everything, like you are going to achieve all directly through them, but rather necessarily the people that you are raised with growing up are going to have a large impact on you, especially when for the most part of your early years you're not conscious. You're getting all this data uploaded into you by these family members, this crazy messed up world that we live in, these crazy family members that take care of us. They're the ones who are around you the most when you're a kid, so they mess you up the most when you're a kid, because when you're a kid, your brain is the most volatile, it's the most liquid, your soul is the most fluid. You're just going with the flow. You don't really have a say about it. So by the time you do reach this like consciousness, there's already so much messed up with you that it takes years and years and years of unpacking to even begin to reintegrate yourself with all the good sides of you, with all the bads. Now, why do you want all the goods and the bad sides of you? Well, because you can learn from the bad sides of you to make some great good sides of you. You need friction to be able to understand how to push forward, how to climb. So you need the both goods and the bads. You need to be able to see the bads without hatred for yourself to be able to get over that. And to be able to use it is a huge benefit for you. And that can only happen from integrating both. So how do we integrate both? The family. Because that's necessarily where you got most of your time as a kid from. So all these things that are stopping you from being that great human, amazing, superhuman, godlike being of yours, the only thing stopping you is most likely things that came from your early childhood, your family. So whether it's directly through them or indirectly by you getting over the trauma that they left you with, your family is the strongest, most largest benefactor towards your life. Where you can mine and get the most amount of ore, the most gold. It's the thickest vein in your life. The family is just it's just the largest geyser of water in your life. It's just the biggest oasis. Where you can get the most of your relief in your life is looking at the family. Not asking the family members, but the idea of family, right? The idea of family. As in, didn't they leave you with a lot of trauma that if you could let go of it, you'd be able to feel free? As in, aren't there a lot of unspoken and unmet promises that both back and forth haven't been met and caused resentment over the years? And if you could just let that go, wouldn't that free you up to be the amazing superhuman version of yourself that you already know yourself to be? Family necessarily is this big factor in your life. Not these people individually. Of course, people are flawed. People individually themselves. We're all works in progress, right? Just the same way that you can't help yourself when you do crazy stuff. Sometimes your parents can't help themselves when they do crazy things. They just go on autopilot. It's hard to see that sometimes. So we don't talk about the family as individuals because they are themselves part of imperfect family and individuals. They themselves individuals and imperfect families as well, right? We all are. So where does that Venn diagram end? We're all a part of our own version of this messed up upbringing. So your parents are, and then their parents are, and then their wives are, their husbands are. Everyone is part of their own little like messed up Venn diagram. So where do we draw the line? Right? Where do we draw the line? Oh, well, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault. It's no, but that's the thing. We have to look at the family. We just understand the concept. Everybody has this concept. We're trying to relate so much. We try to relate so much in the outside world. Too bad, sucker. You never relate out on the outside world. The more you try to relate on the outside world, like using these outside examples, like, oh yeah, well, we see that it's true over there in that specific example. Or like, we see over there in that particular family, it's not that way. Or we see over there in that particular family, like, the dad is like not there, or like the mom's not there, so family's not all there is that you think it is. Or how about over there in that far off example? Like, yeah, you can use all these like real world anecdotal examples, like specific to certain people examples, and try to prove your point. But the more you try to look at the outside world to try to unite people, the more you end up actually dividing them. The only way you can actually unite people is through the inside, is through what we have in common on the inside. Stuff that actually does exist everywhere. If you look on the outside world, like physical expressions of things like people's skin color or their hair texture or their height, they'll never unite everybody because everything always manifests differently on the outside world. Ironically, trying to be united together in the outside world, the only real way is by uniting on the inside world, on the stuff that you can't see. Ironically, the stuff that you can't see is actually the thing that's everywhere. It's omnipresent. Whereas the thing you can see, skin color, texture, height, weight, things that you can see on people is actually not everywhere. It's actually pretty much nowhere. It's only in those specific areas. That person named Herbie, that person named John, that person named Mary, they're just there. Ironically, things that we use to try to unite us, these physical expressions of ourselves, these clothes, hairstyles, makeup, even names when we name our children. Ironically, these things that we place into the outside world in order to make us more united and more social actually end up dividing us more. Because they're actually finite. The thing that we try to make people unite with, like colors, well, that color's only there right now. The color on her shirt to get all these people united, it's only right there right now. The color of her hair, it's only right there right now. The makeup on her face, it's only right there right now. The pecs on her body, it's only right there right now. All those physical expressions of things, as opposed to our relationship with ourselves, our families, our upbringing, our spine, our relationship with ourselves in those ways, our concepts of ourselves and what brought us up. Our relationship with those things actually end up being the thing that is omnipresent. It's everywhere. You cannot get away from it. Everybody's relationship with themselves, everybody's relationship with their own body, everybody's relationship with their own family, everybody's relationship with their self-esteem, everyone's relationship with their siblings if they have some, their cousins. That is omnipresent. Everyone has those. That's something that actually connects us. Is that true? Does that resonate with you as you are allowing these words to enter one ear and out the other on Warfare Wednesday? Are you feeling weight of the body on the front of the spine and into the rainbow just at all the times? Something that we share in common, right? A relationship with ourselves, something that we share in common, right? Something that we all have, a relationship with our families, a relationship with ourselves, our bodies, our souls, our minds, our desires, our feelings, our friends. Our relationship with our own lives is something we can all relate to. How does that make you feel? We'll be right back. don't we all have a connection with ourselves? And isn't that the more omnipresent relationship that we can all see and empathize with in the outside world? Our relationship with ourselves, which means our relationship with our family, our upbringing. Isn't that something we all share? Not in common, but a relationship with it. We all have a relationship with our upbringing, our family. As it defines us in our lives, whether we go towards it or against it, right? It defines us. Our choices. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. World peace through individual strength. Waking up the freaking globe in the mornings, physically and mentally and spiritually, then physically again. Why? To feel better objectively. How is that possible? Well, you'll see. Your morning would feel so good. On Pal Go On, your only no-nonsense podcast brought to you through the Best Feeling Network. I'm your host, Herbie. Good morning. It is 6:12 a.m. on Wednesday, July 14th, 2021, as we are stretching our sense of self, our self-awareness like a muscle today. Are you remembering to allow these words to go in one ear and out the other? No, observing your sense of self as that happens. We all have this relationship with ourselves, right? And isn't that the more commonality thing between us? This relationship with ourselves. As in, can't we all relate to the fact that sometimes we think that our upbringing could have been better, that we could have been more? That we could have been more. No, we all have this relationship with our family. As different as it might be, we all do have a relationship with our family, right? Whether or not we feel like they failed us, whether or not we feel like they benefited us, or that they did not pick us up on time all the time, or that they were neglecting. We all have a relationship with them. Whether or not it is good, we all have one necessarily with our family, with the way they brought us up, because everything we are, well, if you want, you can blame it on your upbringing, right? How useful is that? Well, that's another story. How useful is it to you in your life, in your lifetime, in your ability to overcome suffering, in your ability to be happy and peaceful in your body? I don't know. I don't know how useful it is to look at it in the sense that other people were responsible for it, but we can. You can, in a way, always look at everything around you, everything in the world as responsible for you, in a way. How helpful is it for you to get your goals looking at it? Well, that depends on what your worldview becomes, and how helpful it is, and how well established it is to deal with the different problems in your life. As your worldview is like your abacus, it's like your compass of how to deal with every decision you have in your life, right? And we are all faced with thousands of decisions a day. Maybe. Yeah, probably, if you think about thinking and stuff like that. What do you decide to think about? There's a war on family, but didn't the war with family feel like it was happening already? If there was no war happening within yourself already to align with this meme that they're trying to make go around about family, about trying to make family less serious, or trying to destroy the idea that family is important. And how do we know that it's happening, by the way? Look at the memes, look online, look what they're trying to make into humor, what they're trying to invalidate the seriousness of family. You can see it undermined in big corporate, you can see it undermined in large-scale left movements, right? You can see this happen every time they promote counter-traditional families, not realizing that that's the counter-traditional families. Maybe for you that makes you feel better, but for the babies, if we're thinking about babies, what they want is someone who can embody chaos and order left and right, because they balance each other. So it's pretty obviously the mal and the famal. And so we're seeing a destruction of the family for the sake of vindication of people who think that it's supposed to be that way because of whatever experiences they had But as we were talking about, it's true that not every relationship with the family is going to be perfect, but it is true that we all have a relationship with the family. So to try to remove that idea is to try to dissect you from your natural order. Because once you were born, necessarily you have a family. That is something that your brain creates, because in order to be born, that has had to have happened, period. That is, it is like saying, in order for there to be two, there must be two things of one thing. That is two. It is a definition. It's not a sad thing. It's not a happy thing. It's just an is thing. It's just an is thing. So there is an attempt to affect this relationship that you already have with your family, that you necessarily have with your family. So to destroy the idea of a family is to cripple an entire part of your soul, as your soul knows that there is this thing called a family already. So should you be told that it does not exist, you split your soul into two. You confuse the soul, as it's forced to hold one truth and a non-truth. One that family is not necessary, and the other truth that says, well, I'm alive, so family is necessary. If you are alive, family is necessary. Literally, for that to happen, you need a family of two people. Maybe not a family as in it sticks together and they do all these great things that we traditionally associate with, like good families that we learned over hundreds of years, right? But you have this relationship with a family. One that, just for the sake of yourself, should be as clean and pristine as you can. Whether or not they're great examples of these figures, right? In your brain, like in your life, it is best. It is best. It is best for this war on family to be examined. Why might there be a war on family? Well, aren't you an important person? Isn't there a hole in society, the shape of your soul, when you are not performing to your best? When you are giving your power to other people? When higher forces, evil forces, when government forces that be, all these people who are not your family, all these people who don't care about you or me, telling you to not like the family, well, what does that do? It has you trust in the culture, which is longhand for cult, by the way. Culture is longhand for cult. Say it with me. Culture is longhand for cult. Say it with me. Culture is longhand for cult. Say it with me. Culture is longhand for cult. So should you trust the culture, more than your family? Don't you realize it's not just a war against your family? You might hate them, right? We all might hate our family sometimes, but it's not a war against them. It's a war against you. On Warfare Wednesdays, a war against your family is a war against you. Because you are your family. Not because you tried to take up some mantle that you need to be proud of or anything like that. But it's just the nature. It's just the case. It is just the law. It is just the nature of the universe. As in, it's just the way it is. Your family is you, because before you can decide who you were, your family decided who you were for you. Now, you might not like that. You might not like where that ended you up. But the only way to get better out of that, the only way to get to that potential that you want, is to be able to get out of the trauma that who left you with your family. So a war against your family is a war against from your ability to be able to understand what your family left you with, how they traumatize you, how they mess you up, so that you could be the best version of yourself. How do you become the best version of yourself? Feel great in that body of yours? Get rid of the trauma that your family left you with. Get rid of the trauma that your family puts into you today. That doesn't happen by invalidating family, unfortunately. Because when you invalidate, you cast away, you judge, you hate, you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you lose all the goods with it. You cannot understand it, so now you cannot integrate the good sides of it either. And well, the good sides of it are getting rid of the trauma that they put in you, but if you can't understand that trauma, you can never look at it long enough to be able to get rid of it. It's like surgery. How are you going to perform surgery on something that you're refusing to look at? Same thing with the issues that our families leave us with, which are the only things preventing us from being that superhuman thing that we are. As you look on the internet right now, you look on Twitter, you'll see astral projection, out-of-body experience, mega brain, we are star seeds kind of stuff on the internet. People dreaming to be things that they are not, or that they are not currently visible as. People dreaming to be these giant spirits. We already know that deep down we would all be these giganto gods. We already know that deep down we have these great powers within us. Every human being is endowed with these amazing relationship with their this body of theirs that creates all these experiences of being outward body experiences of experiencing the universe way beyond their own physical body can even imagine to, but they're able to do all those things. We already know that we are all of those things. How do we know that we are all of those things? Well, look around you. Isn't it just accepted by the mass public so readily? Feeling of being these astronauts, these gigantic stars, these godlike beings from within us that is shrouded from the world. We all feel that somewhere deep down we're just being held back. Well, what is that holding us back? That trauma that was placed in within you, those conflicts that was placed within your body before you could do anything about it. And it takes lifetimes unweaving that from your body and untangling it. But once you untangle it, don't we know that it feels so free? We can't do that without family. As in, you can't do that without at least being able to look at the family without judgment so that you can understand the truth about how they messed you up. Again, you can't do that without looking at the family and looking at the truth of how they mess you up. You can't do that if you're angry with them. Here on Padawan, we never get angry, right? Because we're always just body mapping. How are you supposed to be angry when you're feeling about the weight of the body on the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the time? How are you gonna get angry? I was gonna get angry at you. At you. I was gonna get angry at you. But now, I'm feeling the front of my shins. And remember that I do not sit on my legs, and you know what? Everything's all good. We can discuss what we need to discuss, but we're not angry no more. Oh, I wanted to place the weight of the body on the front of the spine, and it's right parts that up. So we don't get angry no more. Why should we not get angry? Well, this war on our family is not just a war on our families, it's a war on us. Because you are defined, you are molded by this family that you could not do anything about when you were younger, when you were born. You could not choose that family. You could not choose how they're going to treat you. And so as you get older, we are these amazing human creatures, right? So we remember those things, whether subconsciously or unconsciously or consciously. We remember how they treated us. We remember how it made us feel. And we orient our entire world towards how our family made us feel. And what our family told us was important, and what our family told us was not important. And what our families told us we were capable of doing, and what our families told us we are not capable of doing. We orient our entire based off of these family rules. All the things that we hate to our family, but all the things that we love also given to you by your family. Maybe not directly, maybe a counterexample. Maybe you're like, oh my god, I hate how my family does that, so I love this. Okay, still, it's based off your family though, still. Right? Oh, well, Herbie, I like science, and my family, well, they're all science deniers. Well, okay, well, maybe you chose science because your whole family's science deniers. We don't have this sense of self, guys. We don't have this sense of self. Like, you guys never wanted to feel a little bit special? You guys never, like, done anything just because it makes you feel a little bit special, a little bit different? The sense of self, guys. And the best feeling network. The sense of self. It's always there. It's always there, right? Why did you choose that thing and not the other? Well, maybe because your family did that, and you have a sense of self, so you have a sense of pride. Maybe you want to be different than your family. Or maybe you wanted to help your family out. Maybe you hated the way your family treated that person who was doing that thing, so you wanted to sympathize with them, and that's why you ended up being interested in field hockey. Maybe you saw the way that your family treated alcohol, and that affected your relationship with alcohol. Yeah, your family didn't directly tell you to do those things, but we have a relationship with our families, and so that our whole lives is a relationship with our family. You know what I mean? Whether it's directly or indirectly. It's a relationship with your upbringing. A war against your family is a war against you. It's a war against your upbringing. It doesn't mean you have to love your family members in the same way that you love your wife, your spouse. It doesn't mean that you need to call them up all the time. But for them to add anger and to introduce things that might dilute your ability to communicate with your family is diluting your ability to communicate with yourself, diluting your ability to see yourself for who you are, to be able to integrate and self-actualize and get the most out of your body and to get the most out of your potential in life. As we only have so many years on life, right? Yeah, so many years in this game. And once this game's over, I don't even know where we go. Is there a credit scene? A war against the family is a war against you. Not because your family is perfect. Not because you're perfect. And we are all far from it. But not because our families are perfect examples of them, or that they've done well, or that they never messed up. But as in the most gold mine of information about yourself so that you can become most self-aware, which would mean that you're most self-balanced, which means you are most free, as we know, right? You want to be most free in life. One of the best ways to get there is through understanding your relationship with the family, which is unique to everybody, but the idea of having a relationship with the family is not unique to anybody. What that relationship might look like, maybe, but the fact that there is one, not unique. Everybody has that. And so should we destroy that connection, you destroy the ability to calmly understand yourself, to calmly look at your own past, and to integrate goods and bads and all of it that you need to about yourself to become self-aware, to become balanced, to become free. Feel great. Because when you feel great, you think great, and when you think great, you do great. A war on the family is a war on you. Your past, your upbringing. You think in animes, whenever they get all strong, they get that freaking power up? You think they do that by not having a flashback? And do you think it's harder or easier to have a flashback when you're upset with your family? When you have all this anger muddling the actual information. So we're trying to get a flashback in life? We're trying to get flashbacks in life and like freaking superpower ourselves? It's not going to come through blaring our vision, our relationship with our family so that we can reduce our flashbacks. You want to have that flashback moment, you know what I'm saying? A war against family is a war against you. And it's happening. They want your votes. They want your relationship with them. They don't want you to think about a relationship with yourself, your family, which is yourself because that's your upbringing, which you couldn't help, right? They don't want you understanding that. They don't want you getting Super Saiyan 2. They don't want you getting Super Saiyan 3. They don't want you getting Gear 2nd, 3rd. They don't want none of that for you. They don't want you looking at your life and improving it. They want you ignoring your life. Running blissfully forward, never looking back at what made you you. Never getting stronger by looking at yourself and consolidating all of what you've learned. They don't want that for you. They want a war on your family. They want a war on you. They don't want you to consolidate and become Super Saiyan. Well, I do. As you feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all the times. Are you feeling the front of the shins and remembering that you do not sit on your legs? What if you could feel great all the time? What if you could feel great for yourself all the time? There's a war on family, but a war on family is a war against you. A war against your ability to look at yourself and integrate the goods and the bads of yourself to get more balance, to get more freedom in your life. A war against your family is a war against you. As you add anger in between you and anything you're trying to understand, well, you're sure to have a harder time. Anger into anything disrupts and it deludes, distorts the image. But we want a clear sense of self. What you could feel great on Pago On. We'll see you tomorrow. This is Warfare Wednesdays. Good morning. See you tomorrow. Feel the weight of the body down the front. front of the spine and into the rainbow arches at all of the times. Feel the front of the shins. Remember, you do not sit on your legs. Are you suspending the crown gently by a thread? We're gonna run this chorus back because it's so good. You know what I said. It is 6:31 a.m. on Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Fantastic day. This is Herbie, and this has been Pal Go On. We'll see you tomorrow.